I was kicked out of my house on Christmas Eve by my own mother. Not a fight. Not some dramatic blow-up. She handed me a garbage bag with my clothes, told me I wasn't contributing enough, and said maybe I'd be better off figuring life out somewhere else. I was 19. My parents had died in a car crash when I was 9, and I'd lived with my aunt ever since. Well, lived at her house. I was never really in the family. I guess it was pity, or the family obligation card, that made her take me in. But from day one, I was more maid than niece. Laundry, dishes, driving my cousins around, babysitting. I was expected to clean up after everyone, but when I asked to borrow $20 for textbooks, suddenly I was entitled. My cousin Julie was the golden child. When she turned 16, they threw her a full, sweet 16-party DJ, custom cake, the works. I got a leftover sheet cake and a happy birthday text at 5 p.m. I worked through high school, saved every dollar, paid rent the second I turned 18. But if I missed one chore, the silent treatment, guilt tripping, whispered conversations behind closed doors. I once found a group text where they referred to me as the charity case with an attitude. What hurt the most was the gaslighting. The way they'd say, "You're part of this family, but make me sleep on the pull-out sofa. We love you like our own." While Julie got a car and I got bus fare. They used me. 10 years of unpaid labor wrapped up in fake smiles and holiday photos I was cropped out of. And still I stayed. Because where else was I supposed to go? That Christmas Eve, I had come home from a double shift at the diner. My feet were killing me. My hair smelled like fryer oil, and all I wanted was to warm up and crash. Instead, my bag was waiting at the door. She didn't even look up from her wine when she said it. "You're just not working out here." No one argued. No one even looked uncomfortable. Julie was scrolling on her phone, and my uncle just stood there holding a plate of cookies. I remember thinking, this is what my parents died for? I slept in my car that night. The next morning, I watched through the windshield as families carried gifts inside, kids laughing in the snow. And I broke. Not the kind of cry that you can wipe away. The kind that makes your whole body shake, that empties something out of you. I thought that was the bottom. I didn't know it was only the beginning. The hardest part wasn't the cold, or the backseat bruises from sleeping in my car. It was the silence, the complete erasure. Not a single call, not a "where are you," not even a guilt text. I crashed on a coworker's couch for a while, bless her, and picked up extra shifts at the diner. I told everyone I was just transitioning apartments. Lie of the year. I ate fries for dinner and cried in walk in freezers between tables. But something cracked open in me during those weeks, a kind of numb awareness. I started replaying all the moments I used to defend. The emotional blackmail, the gaslighting, the quiet dismissals. Suddenly it wasn't a bad day or just how family is. It was a pattern, a sickness. So I stopped reaching out. I didn't send a thank you for the birthday card with $5 in it. I didn't reply when Julie tagged me in some filtered Instagram story captioned "Sisters." Sisters? She once told a guy at a party that I was just a cousin who stayed too long. Instead, I started building quiet walls, saving money, avoiding places they'd be, cutting ties so cleanly they didn't even see the blade. It was almost fun to see how long it took them to notice. Spoiler, they noticed when they needed something. First, it was Aunt Linda's text. "Can you help drive Nana to her appointment? Julie's busy." Not "how are you," not even a hi. Just a task. Then came the Facebook DM from Julie, dripping in faux sweetness. "Hey babe, any chance you can help us set up for Mom's birthday? You always made it look so cute." I ignored it. That's when the group chat exploded. "Linda, wow, so you've really changed." "Uncle Dave, you're acting like a stranger to your own family." "Julie, what did we ever do to you?" I stared at that one for a while. What did they ever do? Gaslight me into thinking I was lucky to scrub their toilets? Forced me into debt so Julie could have a grad party I wasn't invited to? Treat my grief like a phase and my labor like a given? I blocked them. Everyone. That's when the real rage started. They didn't reach out with love. They came with threats. Rumors spread like wildfire. I was emotionally unstable, manipulative, ungrateful. I heard from an old classmate that Julie told people I ran off to marry some criminal. And just when I thought they'd finally let go, I got a letter, handwritten, from my aunt. The front was calm, almost sweet. But the back? "You'll regret this when we're gone. You'll wish you were kinder. There it was again. The twist of the knife, the guilt-laced noose. But I didn't cry. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a scared little orphan begging for love. I felt focused. Like I was standing on the edge of something sharp and necessary. And then came the twist. Because in my withdrawal, in my effort to cut ties, I started cleaning up my life, including my credit. That's when I found it. A strange account under my name. Opened years ago, maxed out, defaulted. They hadn't just used me emotionally. They'd used me financially too. And I was done playing nice. I stared at the screen for a long time. A credit card account I never opened. Thousands in charges. Years old. Ruined credit I hadn't even realized I had. It was all in my name. The billing address. My aunt's house. I laughed. Like actually laughed. The kind that bubbles up from somewhere bitter and hollow. It wasn't enough they'd used my body like a maid, and my grief like a punchline. No, they had to tank my financial future too. But here's the thing about being discarded. You learn how to survive in the shadows. You learn to listen, to watch, to keep receipts literally and metaphorically. So I started digging. First, I called the credit card company. I played dumb, said I was just looking over old accounts. The rep walked me through the application. Security question? My mother's maiden name. The one detail they knew because they posed as the family that saved me. Email on file? Julie's high school Gmail. The rage I felt wasn't fire. It was ice. Cold, sharp, surgical. I ordered every credit report I could. Turned out there were 2 more accounts. One from a store I'd never shopped at. One from a bank I didn't even have an account with. Same addresses. Same handwriting on the application scans. And a copy of my forged signature. It wasn't a mistake, it was a theft. A betrayal wrapped in legal jargon and unpaid balances. And they weren't even smart about it. They used my name to buy a MacBook, a TV, and, I kid you not, a spa package for Mom and Me Day. I recognized the date. It was the same day I asked to borrow money for a textbook and got told some of us work for what we want. I was shaking, not from fear, from clarity. From the electric buzz of knowing I had something now. Proof. Hard, cold, undeniable proof. I wasn't just going to walk away anymore. I was going to make them pay. The first person I told was my coworker, Dana. She was older, sharp, and had that kind of no bullshit energy I admired. When I laid it all out, the debt, the forged documents, the emotional abuse, she didn't gasp or clutch her pearls. She said, "You need a lawyer, and you need a plan." Dana connected me to her cousin Mark, an attorney who used to specialize in fraud cases. I met him at a greasy diner, handed him the folder I'd assembled with screenshots, statements, even the envelope with Aunt Linda's "You'll regret this" note. He flipped through it, paused, looked up, and said, "They committed identity theft. You have a case." I almost cried. Not because of the legal part, but because someone believed me. No minimizing. No, are you sure? Just cold, professional validation. We started slowly, strategically. First, he sent a request to the credit bureaus to flag the accounts as fraudulent. Then came a cease and desist to my aunt, with copies of the statements and evidence of the forgery. We weren't suing yet. Not yet. We wanted them to panic, and they did. 2 weeks later, my phone lit up with blocked calls and anonymous texts. Julie sent an email with the subject line, "Please, let's talk." My uncle tried to friend me on Facebook. Then Linda herself left a voicemail, syrupy sweet at first. "We should have a family meeting, talk this through." Then it got darker. "You're tearing us apart. After everything we did for you." Everything they did for me? No. Everything I did for them. And I was done pretending otherwise. Mark told me the next step was up to me. We could escalate, press charges, go public, push for restitution, or I could walk away with my name cleared and let karma finish the job. But I wasn't here for mercy, I was here for justice. And then came the idea. The one I hadn't dared speak aloud yet. "I want the house," I told Mark. "The house?" He blinked. "The one my parents left me. The one they sold without telling me. I want it back." Because in all my digging, I'd found one more thing, the deed transfer. My parents' house, which should have passed to me, had quietly been signed over to Linda, with my supposed consent. Forged. Like everything else. Mark leaned back in the booth, eyes wide. Then he smiled. "Well then," he said, "let's take it all back." There's something deeply satisfying about watching people squirm. Not because you yelled, not because you made a scene, but because you stayed quiet and let the truth do the heavy lifting. Mark moved fast. Faster than I expected. Once we confirmed the forged signature on the deed transfer, he filed a civil suit for identity theft, fraud, and wrongful property seizure. We sent the paperwork certified mail, the kind you have to sign for. I still imagine the look on Aunt Linda's face when she opened it. The house wasn't just a house. It was the last piece of my parents I had. A modest one-story home, white siding, cracked porch steps. They bought it when they found out they were pregnant with me. It was supposed to be mine when I turned 18, something my mother had put in her will. Linda never mentioned that part when she took me in. Instead, she quietly transferred it into her name using forged documents. Sold it to a friend of the family who flipped it and resold it within months. Probably thought I'd never know, but I did. And I wanted it back. The legal route was brutal. We had to subpoena records, track the title chain, and gather every scrap of paper from the original will. I worked 3 jobs to help cover the fees. I was exhausted, but I was also alive in a way I hadn't been in years. Linda, on the other hand, she was spiraling. Julie posted a cryptic Instagram story about family snakes and being betrayed. My uncle went full scorched earth, emailing my coworkers with wild stories about me struggling with addiction, never touched a drug in my life. And Linda? She tried to call my lawyer directly, sobbing about misunderstandings. Mark didn't even blink, just forwarded the voicemail to the court as evidence of coercive manipulation. When the court date came, I wore the same blazer I'd interviewed in for my first job. It was slightly too big, sleeves hitting just wrong, but it made me feel armored. They showed up looking like a church family photo shoot, fake solemnity, pearls, and all. Linda tried to hug me. I stepped back. The look on her face when she realized I wasn't playing the good girl anymore, priceless. The judge wasn't impressed by their dramatics, not when we laid out the timeline, the financial abuse, the forged documents, the manipulated deed, and most damning, a recorded phone call Mark had secretly arranged with their friend who admitted he bought the house cheap because it was family business. The ruling came down 3 weeks later. Fraud confirmed, title nullified, damages owed. And best of all, the house was going up for auction. Linda couldn't afford the legal fees and the restitution payments. Their friend's flip business had stalled. And I had been saving. I got a low-interest first-time homebuyer loan through a nonprofit that helps women recover from financial abuse. Dana Co. signed. Mark waved his final invoice. On the day of the auction, I stood at the back of that courthouse room, hands steady. I watched Julie glare at me like I'd stolen her legacy. Linda didn't even show. My bid was accepted. I bought my parents' house back, legally, cleanly, and in full view of everyone who thought I'd stay small forever. 2 weeks later, I changed the locks, painted the door a soft green, my mom's favorite color, planted daisies in the front, just like the ones in the old photos from when I was little. And then I sent them a postcard, no words, just a picture of the house, my name on the deed. I didn't need to say a thing. They knew. It's been almost a year since I moved into the house, my house. At first, it didn't feel real. I kept waiting for someone to knock, to tell me it was a mistake. I'd lie awake some nights staring at the ceiling, wondering if they'd find some loophole, some way to take it all back. But no one came. No more footsteps pacing outside my bedroom door. No passive-aggressive post-it notes about dishes. No whispered conversations behind walls. Just quiet, stillness, peace. The walls had yellowed. The carpet was old. There was a crack in the bathroom mirror that caught the morning light in the most unexpected way. But it was mine. Every flaw, every creak, every inch, mine. I painted the room slowly. No rush, no schedule. Just me, a brush, and playlists full of songs I never got to claim growing up. I bought cheap furniture off Craigslist, built things with my own hands, cried when I hung up the first photo of my parents in the hallway. The original frame had been shattered, but I found a new one, gold, simple, strong. They look at me now with something close to pride. Or maybe that's just how I choose to see them. Either way, it's enough. They tried to crawl back, of course. Julie was first. Slid into my DMs with, "We've all made mistakes. You've proved your point. Can we talk?" I didn't reply. Then Aunt Linda sent a letter, handwritten, shaky cursive, claimed she was sick. that I'd won, that maybe I'd consider visiting for her birthday like old times. I sent it back, unopened. I didn't even read past the first line. Because here's the truth, no one tells you about freedom. It's not loud, it's not a mic drop, it's quiet, unapologetic. It's walking into a room and not shrinking. Cooking dinner without flinching at footsteps. Laughing too loud in your own damn kitchen. It's knowing you don't owe anyone a seat at your table just because you share blood. I've got new people now, real people. Dana comes over on Sundays with cheap wine and gossip. Mark and his husband helped me hang shelves last month. Even my diner boss showed up to my housewarming party with a pie and a hug that almost made me cry. There's a garden out back now, overgrown, messy, full of life. Kind of like me, I'm learning to let things grow wild, learning to take up space. I still have scars, emotional ones. Some nights I still hear Linda's voice in my head saying, "You'll regret this," but I don't. Not even for a second. Because I built this life from the ashes they left me in. I clawed my way out, brick by brick, lie by lie, and now I sit at the head of my own table. They say I'm heartless, they say I'm cold, but for once, I put my heart first, and I've never been warmer. Story 2. Have you ever had the impression that you are only a visitor in your own life? Someone is always willing to push you out, know of how hard you try to fit in. I used to believe that family meant love and protection. But believe me, there are moments when the people you love the most will remove everything you value and do it with a grin. I'm 27 years old, and my name is Nora. I recently received my fine arts degree. I was finally prepared to start a new chapter after 5 years of homework, late-night study sessions, and daydreaming about the life I wanted to create. However, this narrative is about more than simply college, maturing, or the future. It's about family, trust, and what happens when the people you should rely on the most turn on you more than anybody else. For me, my mom Grace was everything. She was one of the most gifted cooks I've ever met, powerful and considerate. She developed her own small bakery from the ground up. Her job wasn't the only one. It was her entire world, her pride, and her passion. She was also diligently parenting me when she wasn't managing the company. With love, she meticulously organized every aspect of her life, always planning forward, not only for herself, but also for me. She continued to focus on making sure I would be well, even after receiving a cancer diagnosis. As long as she could, she continued to work, taught me the bakery's management techniques, showed me how to handle paperwork, taxes, suppliers, and everything else I never imagined I'd need to know at such a young age. She said it was how she showed me her love, ensuring that, in the event that she was unable to remain, I could support myself. I believed I wouldn't make it through college when she died 5 years ago, a few weeks before I was about to enroll. I felt like I was having trouble breathing because of how thick the sadness was. I would spend hours lying in bed and gazing up at the ceiling, hoping that it would all be a dream when I woke up. However, it wasn't. She had truly vanished. But what she left behind, that was crucial. She abandoned our house. She put a lot of effort into keeping it. She also left the bakery for me, the center of her existence. "This home will always be yours," she used to say, "while I'm not present. Your anchor will be this." And I took her word for it. I just had no idea at the time how difficult it would be to keep what she provided me or who I would have to battle to keep it. Grace was my mother's name. Because of her famed baking skills as well as her kind demeanor, everyone in our neighborhood knew her. She had the ability to create magic out of the most basic elements. On Saturday mornings, people would wait outside our bakery to receive a slice of her cinnamon buns or peach tart, and the aroma of her freshly baked bread would fill the entire street. Grace was more than simply a gifted baker, though. She was a fighter, a planner, and a builder. She had inherited everything she owned and had grown up with very little. The bakery was hers. Began modestly, with only a rented room, used ovens, and a great deal of optimism. She made it into a successful business over time. She gave her all to the bakery, but she never forgot about me. She made sure I knew I was loved every single day because I was her only child. Our home, a modest 2-story with white shutters and a little garden in front where she grew roses, was located just above the bakery. It was cozy, but not ostentatious. resided there, brimming with memories. She always saved the last piece of pie for me, and I can still hear her humming softly in the kitchen late at night, along with the clatter of baking trays. Nora. She used to say that this bakery is more than just a job. It is our roots, our home. It will be yours one day. Grace remained resilient even after receiving her diagnosis. As long as her body permitted, she continued to work. She turned her attention to teaching me when she was unable to stand for extended periods of time. She showed me everything: how to handle vendors, how to balance the books, and how to treat customers like friends. Unbeknownst to me at the time, she was subtly and elegantly getting me ready. She was ensuring my well-being in her absence. Everything changed when she passed away. During the ensuing weeks, I went through the motions, walking around in a daze. Her meticulous planning, however, started to show in the wills she had prepared, leaving me everything: the house, the bakery, and the savings, even in the midst of the chaos of grief. She believed in me, not because she didn't trust other people. Even as her future was being taken away, she gave me one. I foolishly believed that protecting what she had left behind would be sufficient if I complied with her wishes. I was unaware of my error at the time. Before everything fell apart, my mother and father had been married for 11 years. At the time, I was still a child, too young to understand the weight of divorce, but old enough to feel the distance that followed. His name was Victor. He used to be warm and playful, the kind of dad who would lift me up onto his shoulders or draw silly doodles on my lunch napkins. But something shifted when I was around 9. The laughter in the house faded. The silence grew longer. Then one day, he was just gone. There were no screaming matches, no courtroom drama, just a quiet conversation in the living room. Suitcases packed in the hallway and a tight-lipped goodbye. Within months, he had remarried. Her name was Erica, and she was younger, sharper, and as I would later learn, calculating in ways I couldn't yet understand. Soon after, they had a daughter, Lily, and a new family began without me. I visited sometimes on holidays or the occasional weekend, but I never felt like I belonged. Their house felt like a magazine spread. Beautiful but cold, Erica was always polite, never unkind in front of anyone. But there was a chill in her presence. She would offer Nora, "Would you like to stay for dinner?" But her tone made it clear she hoped I'd say no. Victor was always working. He said he had to provide for his family, but most of the time it felt like I wasn't part of that family at all. Lily, who is 11 years younger than me, was their shining star. Erica doted on her endlessly, brushing her hair, praising her every tiny accomplishment like it was a miracle. I never blamed Lily. She was just a kid. But watching them together only deepened the feeling that I was on the outside looking in. Still, I kept a polite relationship with my father. He paid my college tuition in full, all at once, perhaps out of guilt or obligation. We didn't talk much, but I accepted the help. It felt like the best I could get from him. When I didn't know, then what I couldn't possibly have guessed was that his silence and Erica's distance would someday unravel everything my mother had fought so hard to leave behind. I didn't know they would come back into my life not to support me, but to try and take what was never theirs. Losing my mother was the single hardest thing I've ever lived through. Grace wasn't just my mom. She was my guide, my protector, my best friend. And when cancer finally took her, it felt like a part of me was ripped away. The world kept turning, but I was frozen in place. She passed away just weeks before I was supposed to leave for college. I recall standing in her bedroom, her perfume still lingering in the pillows, the sun filtering softly through the curtains, and wondering how I was supposed to move forward. For days, I barely left my bed. The bakery was closed. The house felt cold, quiet, empty. Then came something unexpected. One morning when I was sitting at the kitchen table, looking blankly at a half-full mug of tea, the door opened, and in stepped Victor with Erica and Lily trailing after him. "We're here for you, Nora," he whispered softly, resting a hand on my shoulder. Erica nodded, her features organized into an expression of meticulous pity. Even Lily, who was normally distant, gave me a sweet glance and offered, "I'm truly sorry. I was too numb to question anything at the moment. I was drowning in sadness and the presence of other people." Anyone felt like a lifeline. They moved into the house that day. Victor brought in baggage. Erica went inside the guest room and began unpacking. Nobody inquired about its safety. In the first several weeks, I didn't stop them. They seemed to genuinely want to assist. Erica took charge of cooking and keeping the refrigerator organized in the kitchen. She maintained the house immaculate. Victor assisted with the deluge of paperwork that follows a death in the family: funeral bills, bank records, and insurance papers. I had little respites from the murky haze in my mind while Lily talked to me about literature in school. Everything looked reasonable, nor warm nor affectionate, but bearable, essential. Even as the summer was coming to an end and my college term was about to begin, the query was raised: how would the house fare? Nothing was going to be sold. For me, this mansion was everything. There were recollections of my mother everywhere. My chest ached at the thought of strangers being there. It also didn't feel right to leave it unoccupied for 4 years while I was away at school. Victor then presented the answer. "While you're away, how about we remain here? Over coffee one morning," he remarked. "We'll take care of the bills and maintain the residence. Nothing will be a concern for you, Erica. Smooth additions were made by flipping pancakes on the burner. It makes sense. This is Lily's favorite school, and the house will be well cared for." I paused. A tiny part of me was uncomfortable, but the rest of me, the exhausted, bereaved, overwhelmed part, was just appreciative. I gave a nod. "All right, thank you." That weekend, I gave Victor an extra key and shut the front door behind me while I prepared for college. I thought I was entrusting my mother's memories to capable individuals. I didn't realize I was really giving it to someone who would want to claim it as their own. Everything I knew seemed so different in college. New locations, new people, a steady hum of activity. I lost myself in late-night study sessions, art studios, lectures, and homework. Anything to divert my attention from the silent pain that persisted in my chest. But home was always with me, no matter how far one traveled. And every time I came home between breaks, it was like entering a well-known artwork that had been slightly altered. Erica greeted me at the door with a warm grin and the aroma of something baking when I first arrived home for autumn vacation. "Nora, welcome back." As if she had always known what I loved, she set the table with unexpected ease and remarked, "I made lasagna, your favorite." It confused me. Lily came running up to me with a sketchbook in her hand. "I've been sketching just like you see. Should I put additional blue to this, in your opinion?" She seemed really excited, and even though I was confused, I couldn't help but smile. It was a rather warm break. We ate meals together. On the couch, Lily and I snacked on popcorn while watching films. In jest, Erica even asked me to join her book group one evening. Nora's interpretations of these dramatic love stories are consistently the finest. I didn't feel like I was simply visiting for the first time. They were including me. There was more of the same on each subsequent visit. We worked together to adorn the tree during Christmas. I argued with Erica over decorations. She detested tinsel. It was classic, I insisted. Victor smiled as if it were a picture-perfect moment as he hoisted Lily to lay the star on top. For the first time in months, I found myself giggling. Summer vacations were even more laid back. I used to sit by the community pool with Lily, laughing at ridiculous videos on our phones. Erica packed our sandwiches and poured us some fresh lemonade. She even occasionally let me use her car. Gradually, slowly, I started to think that perhaps things had really changed. Victor himself seems to have changed. He inquired about my lessons. One evening, he washed dishes next to me and joined us for supper. "Nora," he added, "your mother would be very proud of you." It really got to me. I nodded and blinked back the tears. Perhaps, just possibly, we were starting to resemble family. The actual house started to transform. First, 2 small changes. Erica placed a new rug there and a new vase here. The living room's furnishings was changed with curtains and subdued hues. It didn't feel wrong, though. Her touch somehow became part of what my mother had left behind. We seemed to be moving forward while clinging to the past, or creating something together. I thought we were strong by the time I graduated. Functional, but not flawless. Cozy. I had faith in them. I didn't realize that trust would be the exact tool they used to destroy everything. The post-graduation holidays were meant to be a time of celebration and a return to the life I had been training for. I was eager to return home, settle into the house that had so many memories for me, and start my adult life after working so hard to get here. It was my first time going back, but this time as someone who had survived rather than as a student. I was eager to start the job I had secured in my hometown. More than anything, though, I was eager to return to the home Grace had defended for me and experience the calm that usually accompanies being in her personal space. The sun was shining on the day I got there. The driveway appeared tidy. The manicured rose bushes in front of the house had a distinct appearance. Though they weren't the same delicate pink roses Grace used to grow each spring, they were still roses. The house, nevertheless, had a sufficiently inviting appearance. I got out of the cab and dragged my bags to the front porch, putting the home key I hadn't used in a long time in my bag and sliding it into the lock. A quiver went through my chest. It failed to turn. I scowled. Give it another go. Jiggle. Click turn. Nothing. My heart fell. What on earth? I knocked firmly on the door while muttering to myself. After a while, it opened, and Erica, dressed in a flower-dusted apron, stood there. Her look changed from one of amazement to unease. It was so quick that I nearly missed it. Wiping her hands on the apron, she spoke gently. "Nora, why are you here?" I moved my bag past her into the hallway after blinking in confusion. "What are you saying? This is where I reside." The furnishings was moved, but the house's appearance remained the same. The paintings on the walls were different. The presence of my mother was still there, although it was softer now, faded as though someone had attempted, but failed, to paint over her memories. For what reason were the locks changed? Before she could respond, I turned to face her and asked. From the living room came Victor, looking pale and obviously nervous. Lily trailed closely behind, silent but with a frightened expression. When Victor was uncomfortable, he always stroked the back of his neck. He murmured, averting my gaze, "Nora, let's have a little conversation at the workplace." With a sinking gut, I nodded. I followed him into my mother's former office, which was still brimming with her energy, books, and diplomas. However, the air felt gloomy and far away, as if the room itself was aware of the problem. After closing the door behind us, Victor inhaled deeply. "I have something to share with you." His voice was tight and low as he started. I waited. He cast his gaze downward. "Erica. Erica believes that I own this house." The words were nonsensical. "What?" I inquired. "What are you discussing?" "I inherited this house from Mom. She possesses it. Will you be aware of that?" He gave me a hesitant nod, but he avoided looking at me. "Yes, but I told her it was mine when we moved in. I said that I had given it to your mother as a gesture of goodwill during the divorce, and it returned to me after she passed away." My whole body froze. It seemed as if an ice wave had struck. "You told her a lie?" I muttered. "You allowed her to think this was your home for 5 years. That you were being generous by allowing me to remain here." He murmured softly, "I didn't think it would matter. We needed a place to stay while you were attending college. I assumed it would be short-term. I could feel my chest getting hotter. Startle. Anger, betrayal, short-term. "This is my house," I said. "The home of the mother. And you're telling me that you've been residing here for so long, allowing Erica to believe it belongs to her?" He replied, "I was going to tell her while you lied to both of us." But his voice was weak and unpersuasive. "I need a little time to think about how to deal with it." I gave a head shake. 5 years have passed. Just then, someone knocked on the door. The crisp, phony voice of Erica on the other end. "Nice. Is everything in there all right?" Victor cast his gaze downward. I looked aside, gazing at the familiar pictures on the wall and the books on the shelf. My mother owned everything in that room, but I no longer felt like I owned anything outside of it. It was like traveling through someone else's life in the days that followed that workplace talk. For the most part, I was astonished and kept quiet. I was shocked to learn that Victor, my father, had been lying for years. Amazed that Erica had occupied a home that had never been hers. I was astounded that nobody appeared to find it significant. I kept convincing myself that Victor would make things right and that he would eventually sit down with Erica and be honest with her. He didn't. Instead, almost instantly, things changed in the house. The kindness of Erica disappeared like mist in the sun. Her smiles thinned and her words sharpened. Small things at first, remarks that were nice on the surface, but were hurting deep inside. To make the pantry more functional, I rearranged it. One afternoon, she informed me, "Since you've been so preoccupied with education, you most likely didn't notice." I gave a rigid grin and remained silent. Then the mishaps happened. My favorite white shirt was in the laundry one morning, with vivid pink stains all over it. "Oh no." With feigned concern, Erica said, The baskets must have been jumbled up by me. When the house becomes overly crowded, several things occur. Even Lily, who used to be like a sister to me, started to withdraw herself. She no longer accompanied me on walks or to the movies. One evening, I heard her speaking to a buddy on the phone. "She is still here, yes." Mom says, "I know. It's all so strange." It stung more than I thought it would. For his part, Victor vanished into quiet. He began flying out early and returning home late. His excuses for work, errands, and calls were typically ambiguous. In all honesty, though, I believe he simply didn't want to be present when things became tense. He never defended me in any way. Family meals turned into a minefield. After setting the table and preparing just enough food for 4, Erica would blink naively and remark, "Oh, I didn't think you'd be here for dinner," as soon as I entered. Lily would suppress a chuckle. Victor would eat slowly while sitting quietly, staring at his plate. I started to stay in my room more and more. It was only till I worked things out, I told myself, until Victor found the guts to speak the truth. But I knew better in my heart. Day by day, I was being pushed out in all the important ways. In an attempt to restore some kind of normalcy, I immersed myself into my work. I got back in touch with old pals. I remained at work late. I assured myself that I was okay. However, the anxiety weighed heavily on my shoulders each time I entered through that front door. When I got home one evening, I discovered my mother's favorite face, an antique that she polished on Sundays, crammed into a dirty living room nook. Erica shrugged when I questioned her about it. It was not in keeping with the new style. As I gazed at that face, the words reverberated in my ears. That house was the result of my mother's heart and soul. It was left for me by her, just me. And here I was, like an unwelcome visitor, standing in the center of everything. I realized then that this was not a miscommunication. This has nothing to do with inadequate communication. A takeover occurred here. I make an effort to convince myself that things will level out, that perhaps Victor would finally get over his insecurities and clarify things if I just remained silent and composed. Perhaps Erica would recall that this was not her home. Lily could soften once again. Perhaps. Instead, the situation worsened. Directly cutting comments replaced the passive-aggressive ones. I was in the kitchen one evening pouring myself a cup of coffee when Erica appeared and stood just in front of me, crossed arms obstructing the way to the table. "Nora," she stated in a strong yet lovely voice, "have you considered purchasing a home of your own? I take it you're going to start a new work soon? Perhaps it's time to go on and start your adult life somewhere." I looked at her a moment. I was really aback by how informal she came across, as if I had overstayed my lease and was a roommate. I made an effort to grin. "I have, in fact, spoken with Victor. I'm welcome to stay for a while," he added. She made a strong, narrow line with her lips. She turned aside and replied softly, "Of course," if he did say that. The furniture in the living area was moved when I woke up the next morning. The throw pillows were different. A contemporary glass coffee table took the place of the old wooden one. Additionally, there was no longer my mother's photograph above the mantel. Erica just said, "I put it in the storage closet." When I questioned her about it, it no longer matched the room's atmosphere. It had nothing to do with decorating. It was about replacing my mother and Victor, about eliminating her. He just avoided getting involved. He muttered something about not wanting to get involved when I brought it up. He would respond, "Nora, just try to keep the peace." How Erica gets, I felt like screaming at him. "She doesn't just get this way, Dad. You allowed her to act in this manner." I started to completely skip meals in order to escape the awkward silences and phony politeness. In the living room, I could hear Lily and her mother laughing. With the rhythm that comes from joint control, their voices rose and fell. I had no place there. I didn't. I shut the door to my bedroom every night, gazed at the walls while perched on the edge of my bed. And I would remind myself every night, I live here, the home of my mother. I own this. However, the emotional loneliness still depleted me, despite that knowing. I heard Lily speaking through her door one evening. "She remains here. She's just being stubborn," Mom says. "She will soon break." That phrase lingered in my memory. Take a break. At that moment, I understood they weren't only waiting for me to go. First, they were attempting to shatter me. It took place early on, a Thursday. The home was unusually quiet, so I recall. Erica didn't clink pots in the kitchen. There was no loud music coming from Lily's room. Victor normally sat like a statue in front of the TV, but there was no sports mumbling. Nothing but quiet. I got out of bed and made my way downstairs. The air was still strange. Erica. Dad? I looked around the living room and yelled out. It was also immaculate. Is it spotless? As if it were staged, not inhabited. Keep your shoes away from the door. There isn't a coffee cup on the table. Not even Erica's constant companion, her handbag, was there. I entered the kitchen. The counters shone brightly. There are no crumbs on the floor. The refrigerator appeared to have been well cleaned since it was almost empty. There was a problem. I went outdoors. There was nobody in the driveway. Victor had lost his automobile. Anticipating a message, I took out my phone. An unanswered call. Is there any way to describe their location? Nothing. I gave Victor a call, directly to voicemail. I scowled and gave it another go. The same outcome. After hesitating, I called Erica. The fifth ring was heard by her. She spoke impatiently and sharply. What? I blinked. Where's everyone? I inquired. The home was deserted when I woke up. After a little silence, the distinct sound of breaking waves was heard, accompanied by mellow tropical music. Then her voice returned, amused and sarcastic. Oh, she murmured, drawing out each syllable like poisoned honey. Didn't we tell you? We are in a luxurious resort in New Caledonia on first-class flights. The process. I was still. What? She chuckled. Cruel. Completely content. Yes. We didn't bring it up because, well, we didn't want you to follow along and demand that we cover your expenses. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Really, Nora, she said. You have been residing in our home as if you were a freeloader. I'm not, but your father may be too gentle to say it. It's pitiful. You will soon be 30. Get a place of your own. I held on to the counter's edge. It's not your home, silently, I said. You are aware of that, she snapped. Oh, save it. I want you gone by the time we return. Gather your belongings. Don't even attempt to make Victor feel bad. He concurs with me. He simply lacks the courage to say it aloud. One last pause came. Then, your number has already been banned. Enjoy your life. The call was cut off. I clutched the phone as if it had just burnt my palm as I stood in the center of my mother's kitchen. That was it. The act of faking. Tolerance. The quiet has ended. They believed I would shatter. They didn't know. I had only barely begun. The end of that call, something broke inside of me. Not with fear or rage, but with clarity. I had been trying to be the larger person for years, avoiding their moods, and acting as though nothing was wrong. However, this home, they couldn't steal my house. Not on an emotional level. Not in a legal sense. Never. I wasn't a visitor. Freeloading wasn't my style. The owner was me, and it was time for me to behave accordingly. I carefully packed up their belongings all day long. All traces of Lily, Victor, and Erica. I took away Erica's high-end purses. Her silk robes were strung over bathroom hooks, and her pricey heels were lined up in the closet. All of them were folded into tidy boxes. Lily's phone charger, comb, sketch pads, and school books were all missing from the hallway. Victor's golf clubs, too. His bottles of cologne and his piles of unopened mags. I sealed them away after wrapping each one. After giving the boxes names, I transported them to the garage and carefully stacked them in a single corner. I made sure that nothing that didn't belong to my mother or me was left in the house. I was energized yet fatigued by late afternoon. The house's air already felt different, lighter, and as though it could breathe again. I wasn't finished yet either. I contacted a locksmith after picking up the phone. Hello, I urgently need all of the locks in my house updated. As he changed each lock, the manager lived inside an hour. I held the new keys like gold as I stood at the door. I didn't care that it cost a fortune. I was standing by myself behind the front door by the time the sun started to drop. At last. And once more, everything was mine. I refrained from crying. I didn't think twice. I simply turned the lock, shut the door, and muttered to myself, Nora, welcome home. The house was peaceful and silent by Sunday night. Mine. Over the weekend, I had been putting my mother's tiny touches back together. She returned her framed recipe cards on the kitchen wall. She took her favorite old braided rug out of the cupboard and placed it softly in the doorway. Erica had stashed the portrait away. It belonged over the fireplace, so I hung it there. Then I heard it. A car's sound as it pulls into the driveway. I peered out the window. They had returned. Lily, Erica, and Victor were standing close to the front stairs. They had their arms folded, encircled by the boxes I had piled up in the garage. Anger was flushing Erica's cheeks. She yelled at Victor, her hands cutting through the air. Lily was standing distantly, staring at the floor. In situations like this, Victor always looked precisely like himself. Quiet, uncomfortable, avoiding making eye contact. I stood at the top of the porch stairs and gently went outside. Erica's voice burst as she spotted me. "You have no right to alter the locks." With a yell, she sprang at me. "This is our home. You're not entitled. We have no right to be locked out." I maintained my composure. I didn't yell. I didn't recoil. I just stated it forcefully and plainly. "Erica, this isn't your home." It wasn't. My mother gave it to me in her will. Because I permitted it, you have been residing here, and I don't now. Stunned, she stopped for a moment before turning abruptly to Victor. "Inform her that she is lying." She made a demand. "Inform her that we own this house. Inform her." Victor. He parted his lips, then closed them. His gaze shifted from me to the floor. He finally muttered, "She's telling the truth," in the tiniest possible voice. Erica's face lost its redness. "You?" She pointed at him and hissed, "You misled me. For 5 years, you gave me the impression that we were helping her." She then turned back to face me, and something broke the instant her eyes met mine. She stepped forward. She spoke in a poisonous tone. "Nora," she purred in her phony, sugary voice, "sweetheart, here, we've had a lot of fun. Holiday meals and book club evenings, we are related. We can resolve this." "No," I responded icily. "We are unable to." Her face grew serious. She clenched her fists. "You're a little ungrateful, following everything that we have done for you." I didn't answer. Ready to return inside, I turned and headed for the door. It happened at that moment. She lunged suddenly. Erica smacked me across the face so hard I staggered back before I could respond. Then, with a fierce shove, she shoved me down into the porch steps after grabbing my arm and violently twisting it behind my back. I was not gravely harmed, but I was out of breath after hitting the wooden planks hard. Stunned, I sat up. My arm hurt, but not broken, my cheek scorching. I heard a neighbor yelling, "Call the police!" Across the street, someone shouted. She simply struck her. "Dial 911. With a phone in hand, another neighbor hurried out. Her voice was clear enough for me to hear, indeed. "At 342 Oak Hill Drive, we require cops. Just now, a mom attacked her stepdaughter." Indeed. Now. I held my arm as I gently sat up, heart pounding. Victor remained still. As Erica looked around and saw what she had just done and who had witnessed it, he simply remained there, motionless. 2 police vehicles arrived within minutes, flashing lights. Erica took a step back and waved her arms in an attempt to clarify. It was only a dispute. She initiated it. For months, she has been squatting here. She was interrupted by one cop. "We have witness accounts of an attack, ma'am. Your hands should be behind your back. You're not understanding. This is our home." "No, it isn't." As the officer cuffed her wrists behind her back, I said softly and got to my feet, "And I can verify it with the documents." Erica was put in the rear of the cop car after being escorted down the front steps. Angrily, she turned to face Victor. She cried, "You just stood there. Are you allowing her to harm me in this way?" Victor remained silent. As the cops talked to the neighbors, took statements, and then turned to face me, Lily sobbed silently. "Are you hurt?" "No," I said. "I'm all right." Simply shaken, they gave a nod. Gave me a card after taking my report. "Please give us a call right away if she attempts to return." The squad car's red and blue lights flickered over the porch as it moved away, and then there was stillness once again while I waited at the doorway. However, it seemed peaceful this time. After Erica was arrested, there was a void in the stillness. It was freeing. I didn't feel like an outsider for the first time in years as I stood in the center of that house. Nobody was watching me closely, and nobody was using deceptive tactics to make me doubt my position. The air itself was lighter. I got all the documents I required from the police. ID, case number, cop badge, etc. The next morning, I requested a restraining order. I began the formal legal procedure with the assistance of my lawyer, Renee, who was suggested by a coworker. Erica was accused of trespassing and violence. Additionally, the evidence was strong since neighbors had seen the occurrence and provided testimony. She was freed on bond, but she was not allowed to approach the house or get in touch with me. I didn't insist on going to jail. That would be decided by the courts. However, I also wasn't going to let her leave without taking responsibility. Meanwhile, Victor made an effort to get in touch. The following evening, he called from an unidentified number. I didn't respond. His voicemail was left. He spoke in a low, almost shy voice. "I just want to chat, Nora. This is not how I intended things to turn out," I aired. I believed I was maintaining harmony. I was unaware of the severity of the situation. I removed the message. And there were others. From Lily's phone, a pair. I was certain that Erica was attempting to get around the no-contact rule by calling one of the blacklisted numbers. Since the fact was that they no longer deserved a place in my life, I chose not to respond to any of them. Victor has seen this occur. He had watched helplessly while the woman he married attempted to destroy me, to erase my mother, and then to harm me. It wasn't love. Family wasn't that. It was treachery. And I had finished justifying it. Over the course of the following several days, I thoroughly cleaned the house. All traces of Erica's decorations were eliminated. She argued that the stark white lighting, her minimalist cushions, and her framed artworks gave the space a contemporary feel. It was all packed up and taken to a storage facility. For me, not for them. Proof, should I ever require it. The curtains were replaced by me. I hang my mom's picture again. For the first time in years, I slept through the night after moving my belongings into my mother's former master bedroom. Not as a guest to be tolerated, not as a visitor, as my home's legitimate owner, without Erica and her power. Slowly, the house started to feel familiar again. It's a place to live, not just a place to hide or sleep. I began with minor things. I repainted the walls in gentle earth tones that evoked the warmth of my mother's hug and brought in fresh flowers. I put the furniture back in its original configuration to allow in sunlight and the sound of the wind through the trees. I opened the windows again. The home seemed to have been holding its breath for a long time. Finally, it was able to release its breath. The longest period was spent in the garden. My mother's rose bushes had been replaced with air, which was colder and more homogeneous. Small, well-kept bushes that didn't appear like they belonged in a house, but rather in a brochure. One by one, I tore them out. Roses were planted once again. As Grace always liked them, they were pink, delicate, and lively. Every blossom seemed like a small act of healing. I started to become acclimated to my position at Marshall & Brooks Financial, which helped me stay motivated and effective. My thoughts had a firm place to settle thanks to the structure and the statistics. However, Nina, a colleague from the risk assessment team, gave the most surprising present. We had previously communicated informally, but suddenly she was someone else entirely, a confidant, a true friend, and someone who could see right through my courteous meeting grin and ask, "Are you really okay?" And intended it. We began exchanging tales about our families, our problems, and our dreams over lunch. With Nina, her presence was an easy anchoring. I could chuckle once more. I was able to breathe. There were other things being rebuilt besides the home. I was putting myself back together. A few months later, though, I returned to the bakery for the first time since Grace's death, which was maybe the most significant move. For years, it has been shuttered. Countertops covered in dust. Shelves are empty, quiet. Where there had once been laughing and the aroma of freshly baked bread. For a while, I stood behind the counter and let the memories to consume me. After that, I started working. Months passed. Licenses, repairs and cleaning, painting. I read over Grace's old recipe notebooks and made a few minor adjustments while maintaining the essential ideas. I employed a small team. I rehired Joe, a former employee of my mother's. He recalled her management style and made me think of her more than I had anticipated. The day finally arrived for the bakery to reopen. With my apron tied around my waist, I stood at the front desk. I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time when the scent of cinnamon buns wafted into the street. Pride, not only in the area or the company, but also in myself. I hadn't just made it through everything, it was mine again, rebuilt it, transformed each fragment into something more robust. Now this life, this house, at last it was mine. On certain days, I still find myself staring out the front window, half expecting a ghost from the past to resurface. Now though, those times fly by like clouds in a clear sky. Because I own this place and this existence, I no longer tread carefully. I don't prepare myself for passive-aggressive comments or icy looks. My mother constructed this building from the ground up, and I don't question my being there. Her memory is there in every square inch of this room. The actual version, not the one Erica attempted to remove. The creak of the wooden steps is Grace's touch. The way the early light streams into the kitchen, and the vanilla scent that permeates the pantry. In the early evenings, I occasionally enjoy a cup of tea while sitting on the porch and observing the roses as they softly sway in the wind. Their petals are fresh, vibrant, and healthy. They feel like they've always been here, though. Perhaps they have. I often wonder what my mom would say if she could see me right now. She should be proud, I hope. I found my way back to myself, not simply because I stood my ground, reopened the bakery, or battled for the house. I'm not always going to be here to fight your fights, Nora, she once informed me. You're learning how to stand from me. That strength will be more important one day than everything I could ever leave behind. She was correct. I lost folks I believed I could rely on. I was wounded in more profound ways than I could have ever imagined. However, I stood. I made a new one. And I made something new in the process. Not only a place, a haven, a company, or a heritage, and hope, not simply survival. Now that I'm sitting here with the smell of warm bread wafting down the street and a bakery sign fluttering softly in the evening wind, I know that this is my destiny. I earned it, not because someone handed it to me. I call this place home, my tale, and it's just getting started. Remember to like the video if this story touched you. For more impactful tales like this one, subscribe to the channel and share your opinions in the comments section. To ensure you don't miss any uploads, don't forget to enable alerts. Story 3, you informed me that the family's trip had been rescheduled. It was for you, I said. My sister grinned. Thus, I reclaimed all of their money, prevented them from entering the property, and ensured that their baggage did not go anywhere. I apologize. What? I remarked, looking at my sister on the other side of the corridor and blinking. The trip was postponed, you stated. Clara did not even bat an eye. With her glossy pink nails tapping languidly on the screen, she continued to scan through her phone. Then she gave me the arrogant, patronizing smirk I had known since I was a youngster. It was put off. Sweetly, she said. For you. The floor tilted under my feet. She informed me that the vacation had been canceled just 2 weeks prior. Too costly, she had said. That doesn't feel good. Let's aspire for next season, she added. However, I brought them as I stood in our parents' home, still clutching the grocery bag. The suitcases were arranged in a queue at the door. I could hear our parents teasing, my brother boasting about his hotel upgrade, Clara yelling at me to pack the appropriate clothes, and laughing coming from the kitchen. Today, they were going out without me. Unbelievable. I put the bag down and mumbled, "All of you deceive me." My mom glanced up, then down at her t-shirt. My dad didn't even take his eyes off his phone. Nobody said anything. Clara simply shrugged as if it were insignificant. "You've been really busy lately," she observed in a phony, empathetic tone. "We believed you would value the privacy." "You're busy?" The villa was reserved by me. Claire said her card was maxed out, so who sent her the deposit? The person who assisted our parents in renewing their passports and paid for the travel insurance. And they didn't simply leave me behind. They intended to exclude me. "I understand," I remarked in a low voice, so I paid the bill and was advised to enjoy my alone at home. Clara, obviously having fun, arched an eyebrow. "You often gripe about how stressed out you are by us. All we were doing was helping you." She spoke as though she were the story's protagonist, as if this hadn't been the last act of a long, gradual betrayal. I wanted to rant about everything I had done for them, to flip the kitchen table and to scream. However, I didn't. Rather, I grinned, which frightened her more than any tantrum could. "All right," I remarked as I reached for my keys. "Have fun on your brief journey." Her face wavered. "You're not angry?" I laughed quietly. No. I'm finished. She briefly appeared perplexed, then amused, and then again for a brief period. Anxious. However, it was too late. Her game had been played. It was my time now. What hurts the most, do you know? The fact that they had a lavish family vacation without me isn't the problem. The reason is that I paid for it, each and every component. It began half a year ago. Clara gave me one of her typical phony calls. As siblings, let's bond. Feelings. That ought to have been the first warning sign. In Crete, I came upon this stunning home. She said, it offers private beach access and an infinity pool, and the chef's reviews will wow you, I chuckled. You seem to be packed your luggage already. Not just yet, she responded kindly. Mom and Dad are a little out of their price range, and I don't want them to worry, you know. Perhaps we might enter jointly, I reasoned. Me and you, similar to a family present, how she spoke. We caused me to stop. However, she always knew how to use velvet words to dress up her leeches. I should have declined, but I chose not to. I was the trustworthy one, the steady one, the unseen framework supporting their mayhem. I thus sent the $1,000 deposit. Then there were unforeseen costs, flight modifications, and improvements to the rental car. Here's another $1,200. It was $1,700. My folks grinned like kings and queens when they learnt about the vacation. That shows a lot of maturity. Good to see you finally stepping up, my mother replied. My father also added, thank you, but no offer to help. I was expected to be the family's pillar of support. Nevertheless, I didn't grumble. Not when Clara needed assistance making reservations for their boat rides. I convinced myself that I was doing it for the memories when my father requested me to simply contribute for the trip insurance. I never truly had a family, for whatever reason. Now, however, I could now see how they truly felt about me. A way to achieve a goal, a wallet, a stand-in. The worst aspect, they weren't only dishonest, they planned it. Because I asked Mom in passing a week before the vacation, I take it that we're still set for the 14th. She blinked like though I had given her a slap. Well, we're really delaying until August, Clara remarked. Something regarding sales during the off-season. After lying to my face, Clara instructed Mom to hide it. I attempted to defend it even then. Perhaps they simply neglected to inform me of the revised plan. There could have been an error. The night before their trip, however, the reality erupted in my face. Clara was giggling, twirling with joy, and throwing swimming suits into a bag when I went by our parents' house to drop off some papers. She said bluntly, "Didn't think you'd be here. It was postponed," you stated. Wearing fancy sunglasses, she had a devilish smirk. "It was for you," I said, she said. It's as if I weren't real at all, only a supporting role in her sitcom. I glanced towards the door. My father was packing the car with suitcases. I saw my mother pour champagne. Before they even got on the plane, they were having a party. Why? I inquired. Hardly more than a murmur. As if I were sluggish, Clara cocked her head. Hurry up. Do you truly wish to attend? Everything is constantly ruined by you. You evaluate everyone while sitting in the corner. I don't mean to offend, but this journey needed to be short. No negative energy. I let out a brief, shattered, startled chuckle. You stole my money then? Your cash? She laughed. Oh, please. Do you live alone? No wife? No children? You're spending it on what else? Then, as if I were a coffee table, she rolled her eyes and walked away. I thought something was cracked. It wasn't anger. Not quite yet. It was quieter, sharper, and colder. Within me like a wire. At last it came loose. I left without saying anything. However, I didn't sleep that night. I refrained from crying. I didn't shout. I had a plan. I launched all the apps. Each reservation, each and every invoice, each and every login. And I discovered something lovely. Since I was the owner of everything, the catering, the rental vehicle, and the villa, even the heating of the pool, they had desired my invisibility. They ought to have ensured that I had lost the keys to their realm. I thus called the concierge, blocked their phones, canceled the groceries delivery, changed the locks, and entered into the rental website. I sent the driver a kind email. This reservation's guests have been withdrawn. There is no need for an airport pickup. I then waited for my phone to blow up, for the commotion and for the screaming. Since They believed I was the idiot. They didn't realize I was the one with the matches. And I had had enough of them stepping all over me. They traveled. I exacted my retribution. However, blocking their phone numbers from the concierge or canceling their property access proved insufficient. No, there was one more item they needed: the bags. You see, there was one fatal fault in his brilliant scheme. She asked me to make all the reservations, everything. For their fragile belongings, this includes the international luggage service. I want the luggage delivered directly to the villa, she said. You are aware of how famous people do it. It is picked up from the airport and dropped off at the destination by this service that I discovered. Can you simply take it? Like an excessive number of emails. So I took care of it. I signed in. I located the reservation. The delivery is planned for tomorrow at 11 a.m. Excellent. After a long, satisfying moment of staring at the blank field after clicking Edit Location, I typed in a mortgage, Greece's Silent Goat Farm. Yes, a real place. In the middle of nowhere, surrounded by mountains. Even a special instruction note is attached. The owner would rather not be contacted. Simply place your bags by the fence. Avoid upsetting the animals. I had to sit down because I was laughing so much. I had a mental image of it already. My sister's luxury suitcase, my mother's essential oils, and my father's golf set, filled with compulsive attention. They are now climbing a dirt road that leads to a goat sanctuary. Lyrical. Naturally, I ensured that there were no refunds. After dispatch, no modifications are permitted. They would only have their hand luggage when they landed. A magazine, perhaps. A bar of granola. 2 pillows for the neck. I leaned back and shut the laptop. In years, for the first time, the joke didn't sit well with me. Indeed, they were. It was 6:12 a.m. when the call began, local time. I was eating cereal. The first was from my mother, declined, then Clara, then my father, then Clara again. They were getting desperate. Eventually, I caved, not to talk, just to listen. I hit answer and stayed silent. Clara's voice exploded out of the speaker. Where is my stuff? I took a slow sip of my coffee. Probably somewhere scenic. I said calmly, maybe a nice mountain view. Perfect for reflection. You sent our bags to a farm? She shrieked. A goat farm, I corrected. Don't worry. I hear that they're very respectful with fragile items. She made a sound somewhere between a scream and a gasp. You're unbelievable, says the woman, who planned a vacation behind my back and used my bank account to do it. My dad got on the phone. We're stuck here with nothing, he barked. You embarrassed this family? No, I said flatly. You embarrassed yourselves. I'm just returning the favor. Then I hung up, and this time I blocked their numbers. The text rolled in from unknown numbers. Emotional blackmail on loop. This is Mom. I'm using Claire's phone. Please call me. We're in trouble. You've made your point. Fix this before it gets worse. We'll pay you back. Just send the luggage back, please. But the goat farm doesn't do returns. I know, I called to ask. The owner sounded confused but cheerful, so the bags arrived in good condition. Very strange delivery. But my goats enjoy the company, he said in broken English. One of them sleep on purple back. I nearly dropped the phone from laughing. So now they were stuck in paradise. No clothes, no toiletries, no Wi-Fi. I revoked their code, no fridge service. I canceled the grocery drop-off, no driver. He'd already been told they weren't welcome, and no one to beg. I burned the bridge, then salted the ground. All they had was time and each other. No distractions, no servants, no access, just silence. The kind I dreamed of for years. And as I danced barefoot in my kitchen, music playing, the sun shining through the window, I smiled. Because for once I wasn't the fool, I was the storm. They came home 3 days early. Sunburned, exhausted, defeated. I was sitting on the porch when they pulled into the driveway like survivors of some emotional war. Clara jumped out of the car, first red-faced hair in a messy bun, her designer sunglasses askew. You, she snapped, storming at me like a baby in meltdown mode. What is wrong with you? I stayed sat, sipping lemonade. Clara, I remarked, nodding respectfully. How was the farm? Her scream might have smashed glass. We were embarrassed. Do you have any clue what you've done? You mean other than paying for a family trip I wasn't invited to? My mother appeared next. lugging 2 carry-ons and looking like she hadn't slept since Athens. Her visage shifted between remorse and wrath. "You humiliated us," she shouted. "No," I responded coolly. "I gave you a glimpse of my feelings during the past decade." Pretending to be occupied with untangling straps, my father remained close to the trunk. He avoided looking at me. Clara crossed her arms. "For nothing you went nuclear. We didn't want to spend a week with your gloomy vibe, which is why you're so resentful." I put down the drink and slowly got to my feet. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't yell. Every syllable had to hit like a brick for me. "Clara, you lied to me. My money was stolen by you. You treated me like a mute button on a Visa card. Then you went away. You rejoiced in abandoning me. Don't just sit there and moan about the lack of energy." When a whole vacation was based on treachery, she parted her lips to respond. "Then close it once again. How about you?" I turned to face my mom and stated that. "You let her to do it as you sat there. Covered for her, I lied to my face. She's your golden girl, that's why. And I'm simply what? The giver. The son stand-in." Her mouth quivered. "It wasn't our intention. You never mean it. That's the issue. It's never true. Don't be straightforward. Expectations only. You're surprised now that I've finally stopped complying. My father finally said anything. Your family still includes us." "No, you were," I said. "However, one of their own is not viewed as a disposable wallet by families." Clara moved nearer once again and gestured at my face. "You consider yourselves so honorable. This was enjoyable to you. You intended for us to suffer." "Yes, I did." "Exactly." She blinked. "Do you really think I didn't like seeing karma return the favor for once? After all the years of your arrogant remarks, your sense of entitlement, and the way you control others to act as though you're a member of a royal family." Clara appeared to be about to blow up. She growled, "I have done nothing but try to keep this family together. No, I lost my temper. Every effort has been made to keep me out of it." After a long period of time, a soft voice whispered, "She's right," from behind the SUV. Everybody turned. It was Clara's husband, Alex. I had no idea he was at home. He seemed worn out. Shoulders drooped. His eyes had dark shadows under them. "What do you know, sweetie?" His gaze was fixed on Clara as he spoke. "I have been quiet enough. He is correct in every way. Please pardon me." Clara spat out. "You mistreat him. You are trash to everyone. You gaslight, you guilt. You then weep about being the victim." Clara's lips moved back and forth. He said, "I saw the texts. The entire affair was planned by you. You desired to keep him out, claimed to be tired of his buzzkill enthusiasm. My mother let out a gasp. You then took his money." After finishing, Alex chuckled. He faced me. "I apologize, dude. I ought to have spoken up sooner." I simply nodded. I wasn't confident in my voice. Clara was frozen there, face to face. At last she broke down. "This family is crazy." She let out a scream. "After everything I've done, you're all betraying me." "That's right. After everything," I said. I walked over to the door. "I'm finished." This was the final action taken. My mother asked in a low voice, "Your hierarchy, your games, and your silence are all yours to keep. I no longer participate in it. You can't simply leave." My father snarled. "Observe me." I entered the house, picked up my already packed suitcase, and made one final turn at the door. I mentioned the goat that slept on your back. Hector is his name. He wishes you well. After that, I departed. I woke up to an odd sight the following morning. Quiet. No voicemails that make you feel guilty or a buzzing phone. No demands for cash. No pings in the group chat? No. "Could you please just assist us with the refrigerator's hum?" The light breezed through the open window. A world without obligation. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. And for the first time in years, I smiled without forcing it. I didn't hear from them for 2 weeks. It was glorious. No Clara. No dramatic texts, no cryptic posts on social media. My parents didn't call my father. The head of the household went back to ignoring me like he always had, unless I was paying a bill. But the best part, I didn't care. I cleaned out my apartment, got rid of things that weighed me down, took time off work. I wanted the beach by myself, but a stupidly expensive milkshake without justifying it. I didn't have to save it for someone else's vacation anymore. I was alive. Then came the email subject line. "Let's discuss for mom." No. Hi. No. I miss you. Just. You've made your point. But this is still your family. Clara is devastated. She's in treatment now. We hope you'll come around before things become worse. Dad believes it's time to put this behind us. Maybe Sunday supper next week." I gazed at the screen. They were still using the same script, still playing the same rules. Only now they didn't have a stage or an audience. I clicked archive without commenting. Naturally, though, life never allows the drama to end quietly. I received a call from an unidentified number a few days later. Normally, I wouldn't respond to those, but I did. "Hello, this is Clara's husband, Alex." I remained silent. "Simply wait. I apologize for disturbing you." Clara departed, even though I know you probably don't want to hear this. I blinked. Left? What? Me. The home. Everything. He let out a sigh. Everything blew out after that day. The outcry was too much for her. She spiraled, despite your parents' constant attempts to act as though nothing had occurred. Said that everyone had deceived her. I remained silent. Quietly, he said, "I just wanted to say you weren't crazy. We were all duped by her. But the only person who ever confronted her was you." He hesitated. "In any case, forget about the entire conversation. If you ever need beer, coffee, or a chill, I'm always here." It felt like a crack in the wall, although it wasn't much. One that allowed the truth to seep in. The next week, I unexpectedly ran into someone at the Linda grocery shop. She was the only member of the family who had never taken sides, and had always been calm, impartial, and observant. "Hey," she murmured softly. "I just wanted to let you know that I heard what transpired. I prepared myself, and you have my admiration." I blinked. "I'm sorry. None of us ever had the guts to do what you did. You established limits. You confronted them all. The cycle was broken by you." She gave me a quick grip on the arm and left. I thought about that moment for days. I received a message request on Instagram on Saturday morning. I couldn't remember the name. I hardly recalled the girl from Clara's wedding, but she was one of her old acquaintances. "Hello, I hope it's all right. I'm contacting you. I simply wanted to express that I have always appreciated you after seeing what transpired. You were the only member of your family that ever appeared to be paying attention to what others were saying. You were worthy of better." With my phone in hand, I sat there attempting to make sense of my feelings. It wasn't rage. It wasn't pride. Peace prevailed. They attempted to banish me, but I had freed myself. I purchased a ticket to Iceland a week later. Only me. Just in order to witness the Northern Lights. I didn't seek for permission. I didn't post about it. And I didn't tell anyone. And I muttered one thing as I stood there silently beneath the sky, watching ribbons of green dance. I will not return to my former self. I meant it too. What's humorous, do you? Despite the blocked phones, ignored emails, and quiet, they still believe I'll return. I am aware that they secretly think this is simply another outburst, another storm for which I will finally offer an apology. The fact that this wasn't a storm is lost on them. This was the building and the evacuation. It's already completely destroyed by fire. Last week, Clara texted me from a new number. "Just know that treatment is working, even if I know you despise me. I'm attempting to transform, don't apologize." Just that deceptive half-confession meant to instill shame in me. I didn't read the rest before deleting it. My mom gave me a card for my birthday. There was $25 in it. That would be like wiping off 15 years of emotional debt. She put her signature on it. "You continue to make us proud." Feeling proud? They no longer even recognize me. The point is that, do you wish to know my current identity? I'm the person who wakes up without fear, who strolls past upscale shops mindlessly, and who enjoys a good cup of coffee from a mug he actually chose for himself. Perhaps I ought to get Mom or Clara something. I'm no longer a supplier. I don't let you down. Someone else's family fantasy does not include me as a supporting role. I am who I am, sharply, loudly, and without apology. I sometimes remember that day on the porch when Clara was standing there, angry, wanting to know how I could have done this to my family. "And since you were, I now know the response I ought to have given. Never mind. Families are meant to be loving, forgiving, and protective. I didn't have family, though. The scheme was a pyramid. Wearing a jumper for Christmas. Continue giving until you are exhausted. I didn't break, though. The other day, I detonated it. At a cafe, I saw a couple fighting. As she sobbed, the woman claimed that no one ever noticed that she always did everything. The man muttered, "You're going overboard." I paused, purchased a croissant for her. I wrote, I left it on her table with a serviette on it. You're not insane. The only one who woke up at last was you. Isn't that what this narrative is? Nor drama, nor retaliation. Waking. I've had enough of burning myself to keep others warm. There is a cut in the gas line. The matchbooks are no longer there. The bank isn't open. What about the doors? From the inside, they are locked.